You know that feeling, right? That little voice in the back of your head that says something is just fundamentally off with the world. It's not just you being anxious. The source material for this explainer makes a pretty bold claim. That feeling you have, that's not anxiety. It's pattern recognition. And to really get our heads around this, we have to start here with this quote. It happens gradually, then suddenly. I mean, that perfectly captures how big systems change, doesn't it? There's this long, slow buildup of pressure, everything seems fine, and then all at once, it isn't. Let's take a quick trip back to 1929. The experts, the smart money, they all thought the good times would last forever. On October 24th, the markets started to wobble. So a top banker steps in, makes this big dramatic show of confidence, and the floor erupts in cheers. Crisis over, right? Well, that feeling of safety lasted for exactly 5 days. But here's the real kicker from 1929. It's not just that it crashed. It's that people felt it coming. The wild speculation, the stories of shoeshine boys giving out stock tips, those were the warning signs. People saw the signals, they felt that systemic wrongness, but they just didn't have the words to describe what was actually happening to them. Well, today, we have the language, and you might be surprised where it comes from. It's not from economics, it's from physics. The word is harbinger. Think of it like this. It's a measurable signal a system sends out when it's getting close to a tipping point, like the little bubbles that form just before water hits a rolling boil. And right now, our economy is flashing every single one of these warning signs. So the first harbinger is something called critical slowing down. Basically, healthy systems are resilient. You hit them, they bounce right back. But as the system gets weaker and closer to its breaking point, that bounce back time gets longer and longer. A little wobble turns into a stagger. And a stagger, well, that eventually becomes a fall. And you can really see this starkly here. After the 2008 crisis, it took a full decade and trillions of dollars in intervention to get the kind of feeble recovery that used to happen naturally in just a couple of years. We're not really bouncing back anymore. The system is just being propped up. The source we're looking at uses this incredible analogy. It's like an old boxer who thinks he's still got it, but his reflexes are gone. He doesn't even realize how slow he's become until he's already on the canvas. That's our economy right now. All right, so what happens when a system loses that resilience, that ability to bounce back? Well, it gets erratic. It gets unpredictable. This brings us to our second harbinger, variance explosion. It's a fancy term for when tiny little inputs start creating huge, wildly out of proportion results. You can think of them as extreme economic mood swings. I mean, come on. You couldn't ask for a better illustration of this than the whole GameStop frenzy. That wasn't just some funny fluke. It was a perfect textbook signal. A bunch of people on a Reddit forum caused the stock of a struggling mall retailer to shoot up from $17 to almost $500 in a matter of weeks for no fundamental reason whatsoever. That's variance explosion. So the critical question is, why is this happening? The author argues that we've pumped trillions of dollars into the system, supercharging it with all this energy. But that energy has nowhere productive to go. So what happens? It finds increasingly absurd outlets, creating what they call the everything bubble, where pure speculation starts to infect every asset class. Okay, this third harbinger is maybe the strangest one. It's called flickering. This is what happens when the most basic, fundamental categories that make up our economy start to, well, they start to break down. They can't decide what they are anymore. Just think about it for a second. We've had Uber for more than a decade. We've had thousands of lawsuits. And we still, to this day, cannot give a straight legal answer to that first question. And Bitcoin? Is it money? Is it a commodity? Is it just a collectible? These things exist in this weird twilight zone where they are both and neither. Now, this isn't just a legal debate team topic. According to physics, this flickering is a universal signature of a system at a tipping point. The source compares it to water at exactly 0 degrees Celsius. You can literally see both liquid water and ice crystals coexisting, flickering back and forth. The system can't decide which state it wants to be in. That's what's happening in our economy. And that brings us to the fourth and final harbinger. This one shows how in our quest to make everything maximally efficient, we've actually made the entire system catastrophically fragile. The technical name is correlation length explosion, which is just a complicated way of saying that now everything is connected to everything else. Remember the Ever Given? You know, the one container ship that got stuck sideways in the Suez Canal? It almost sounds like the setup to a bad joke, but it wasn't a joke. It was the completely predictable result of a system where we've removed every single buffer, every single redundancy. And just look at the cascade that followed. One local problem became a global crisis in hours. And that's the whole point right there. In our hyper-efficient, just-in-time global economy, every single piece is so tightly linked to every other piece that there are no local problems anymore. A shock anywhere becomes a shock everywhere, instantly.
Okay, so let's pull all 4 of these threads together. Let's step back and look at the big picture these harbingers are painting for us.
You see, these aren't 4 separate problems. The source is absolutely clear on this. There are 4 different scientific ways of measuring the exact same underlying reality. They're like taking the temperature, blood pressure, and heart rate of a patient. They're the vital signs of a complex system that has been pushed to its breaking point. And this, right here, is probably the single most important takeaway from this whole explainer. What we're seeing aren't just market trends. They're not just policy mistakes. We are talking about fundamental, universal laws of complex systems. The same laws that show up in ecosystems right before they collapse or in stars right before they go supernova. So let's go back to where we started, that deep feeling of systemic wrongness. The source argues that it's not just in your head. It's your brain, your deep, instinctual limbic system, processing all of these harbingers simultaneously, even if you don't have the words for them. It is your gut screaming at you that the water's about to boil. But here's the crucial thing about a phase transition, like water boiling. It's not just an ending, it's a transformation. Water doesn't cease to exist when it boils, right? It becomes steam, a new state with totally new properties. The transition itself, well, that's inevitable. Physics has pretty much decided that part for us. The only question that really matters is, what comes next? And that part, the author concludes, is still up to us.